Thank you. You're welcome. I just want to say really fast for all the vaginas in the house that AVB, all vaginas are beautiful. So my story has no sex and no dicks, but it does have travel, which I feel like was a theme. So this year I decided to go to Japan a whole lot because America's in a bad state. I work in tech and have a little bit of money, and then I wanted to reclaim it from an ex that I went there with years ago. So I went there in January. It was really fun. It was very redeeming. I met a bunch of friends. And I was like, I'm going to go back in March. And so I booked a ticket. I convinced a friend to meet me there who was in New York. And I went to the airport the day of, and I was just like, I can't wait to be back there. Like, I'm going to see all my friends. And I finally had, like, gay friends in Japan, which was a big deal for me. And so I get to the airport, and the flight is, like, not boarding and not boarding. And eventually we find out that Air Canada is too cheap to buy a part from Horizon that they need to fly us to Vancouver. Because if you want to go to Japan, there's no direct flights. You got to fly somewhere else. So I was, like, pretty haggard when I finally got to Vancouver that night to sleep there. And I met up with a friend, and we had some food, and I was still just like, oh, Japan, I gotta go there. And so I kind of like gathered myself, hopped on this flight, spent the entire flight explaining to two older Japanese women how to use the touchscreens to like watch movies with Japanese subtitles. They had just gotten back from America where they met Elvis, and they were very happy. And I was like, can I adopt both of you as my grandparents? Also a third person tonight I want to adopt as a grandma. So we land there, and like, I don't know about you, but when I travel, I try to be comfortable. So I have like my yoga pants on, I've got my like tank top, I'm like, been kind of like low-key sleeping. I don't bring plain snacks anymore because mine are, I'm from Texas originally, mine are very Texan. I have like salami and then like some blue cheese, and I have gotten too many bad reactions on the plane from like my stinky ass snacks, so I've learned that if you're flying, especially a Japanese airline, they usually feed you pretty well. They also give you metal cutlery, which is cool. So I land, and I'm like, got two things in my mind. I have to get my SIM card from my phone, because like I want to be able to text people, and I have to book it to this place called Koenji, which is to the west of Tokyo, to see a documentary about the military occupation of Okinawa with a bunch of dykes. So I'm like excited, but also exhausted. And I walk out of the plane and like into the main area, and I'm looking for the post office to get my SIM card, because you can like mail yourself one. And I hear, excuse me, Japanese TV, excuse me. And I'm like, not me, obviously. Like, I'm just going about my business. And they yell again, and I turn around, and I'm like, in Japanese, I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, we want to interview you. And there's this like man in this sort of like button-up shirt with these like fancy little glasses and a red armband that says TV Tokyo. Like, okay, like I haven't checked the news, so I'm like, hopefully nothing happened at home. Like, I don't really know what's going on, but these people are about to talk to me. And he's like, we just want to know, why are you in Japan? And I'm like, oh God. Like I made it through immigration, but maybe this is like a second test. Like they're like, are you really a lesbian? You can't be here. So I start talking to them in like sort of Japanese and English and back and forth, and there's a translator, and they're like, seriously just want to know what brought me there. And they keep getting more and more confused because I'm like, I don't know, I'm just coming here to like see a bunch of dykes and eat food. And they're like, I think like, I later on found out after watching this show on YouTube that like a lot of the people they interview are like really big into anime or like really big into like Japanese pop or like, who knows, like all sorts of stuff. And so they start talking to me more, and like nothing I'm saying to them makes any sense. They're like, where are you staying? And I'm like, Koenji. And Koenji is like west side of Tokyo. It's this like sleepy little town that like mostly is filled with like punks and people who do lots of drugs and queers and socialists. And so it's perfect for me, but for like the average Japanese person, they're like, why the fuck would you go there? So I'm like, that's where I go, that's where I hang out, that's my place, like those are my people. And so I'm like looking at my watch, like I really gotta go see this film, I'm gonna be late. And they're like, okay, well, just like, we really wanna go with you there. I'm like, well, okay, not tonight, but I'll tell you what, I'm going on a little trip around Japan, but like when I get back to Tokyo, we'll talk, like trade email addresses. And it's like really hard to say no in Japan. Like it's culturally maybe inappropriate to like say no in a strong way, so you kind of just say like, sumimasen ga chotto. Like, it's okay, maybe a little, right? And so I was like, I guess, you want me. They also were really confused because I was wearing all black, and they were like, why are you wearing all black? And I was like, because Hail Satan. Which also didn't translate very well, so. And like they saw my tattoos and were confused by that too. They later on were like, oh, you look like a wrestler. And I was like, not really. But so I go about my business. I go to Osaka and Kyoto, and I see all my friends, and I have a great time. And I'm like chatting with them via email the whole time, and they're like, look, we want to go with you and want to see the like Koenji through your eyes. We want to like drink with you and like talk to the people. And I'm like very stressful. So I'm almost saying no because I'm like 32 and I'm just like the last thing I want to do is go out drinking with a bunch of Japanese guys late at night. Like I want to just like be in bed with my Kindle reading Mary Gateskill. And so I get back to Koenji and we've agreed to meet at the like train station at like 7 p.m. And they're like, we want to drink all night. And I'm like, that hasn't happened in 10 years. Like, that is a terrible idea. But once again, I can't say no, so I'm just like, well, we'll see. And they're like, if you need to back out, just let us know. No, that's not gonna happen. So I get there and we start chatting and they're like, all right, take us to your favorite bar. And I'm like, I don't know any bar's names, so we'll just do a crawl. So we start making our way down this like main road in Koenji and we go in the first bar. And when you get in there, like, went in order to drink, and they had to like talk to the bartenders and make sure they could film, and the dude had like the diver's signal for the camera crew, so he's just like, every bar was like, okay, and then he would come in. And I don't know if you've ever had the weird opportunity to like drink while people are filming you, but it throws everything off, so I was just kind of like, whoa, like not really sure how they were going to use the footage, like hoping they weren't going to embarrass me. And we're chatting, and I get the first drink, and it's like 70 proof, and the interviewer is like, I'm gonna match you drink for drink, but that's a really strong drink. And I'm like, okay, like whatever. And then like the camera moves away for a second. He's like, I know how to drink. I'm really good at it, so don't worry. Like I can keep up with you. And I'm like, dude, I've got you like by 100 pounds, so you're gonna die. Like my family is Swedish and I have drinking tattoos, so. So we keep on going, and they're like asking me questions about like what brought me to Japan and what I love about Japan. And I can tell they still don't understand anything that I'm saying because I'm like talking about like the lesbians that I know there and the like underground queer culture and the punk clubs that I go to, and they're just kind of like, what is happening? So we close up there. I think we had like 4 drinks in like 30 minutes, all around 70 proof, and some curly fries because I was hungry. And he's like, just going for it. We go to the next bar. They like communicate, and the guy's like, actually, this bar is for tourists. We should take you to the locals bar. So we go like around the corner and like through an alleyway and end up in this place where like everyone looks ancient and like they just hang out there all the time. And I'm like, this is amazing. And they give us like a sort of like a set meal that like the chef has prepared. And they're start asking me, they're like, you're not talking to any of the locals. Like, what are you doing? Like, we want to see you talk to the locals. And I was like, I just read in bars. Like, I was like, in my experience, people come, to drink, and they don't want to talk to like some like American white person who's just like bumbles into their bar. So I'm just gonna read a book. So they literally filmed me reading a book for 10 minutes. They were like, the American lesbian in her natural habitat. And the whole time I was like super aware of the fact that like I'm setting some sort of like example because I don't know how many like trans dykes who are like from America have been on TV in Japan, so I'm just like, it's like stereotype threat. Like I gotta make sure that I'm like first foot like forward is good. I also find out that the crew can't drink or eat the whole time, except at this bar where they have like a really quick meal. But I'm like, Jesus, if we're gonna drink all night and you guys have to just watch us be idiots, this sucks. But that's their job. So we kept on talking, and they were like, we want you to take us to like the bar that you really like. And so I'm like, all right, well, it's not in this area, but it's like nearby. So we go over there, and on the way, they're still asking me questions about like who I am and what I do. And it quickly turned into like me talking about being a dyke, at which time I was informed that was too blue for Japanese TV. Because I was like, oh yeah, like these girls or whatever. And they were like, oh, you can't talk about that on TV. So I was like, I don't know what to talk about. Like, have you read these books? So we get to this bar, and I'd been there before, like kind of randomly, and the guy who runs it is like this grizzled dude who'd like lived in a different town and opened this bar mostly for like taxi drivers and like local workers. And so I went in there like not having any clue, and I had a great conversation with like an NHK reporter who I argued with because he thought Trump was cool, and I was like, Trump is not cool, which was interesting in Japanese. But he also asked me to explain trucks because he was like, why do people drive trucks in America? Like, because sometimes they have hay bales, or they're insecure about the size of their penis, which he found satisfactory. But so I went back to this bar. And I'd had this like long conversation with the bartender after he left and before we watched anime, for some reason, at 2 a.m., about how he was really sad that he only had one girlfriend, because I had 3. Don't right now, but did at the time. And he was like, you know, I really want to do rope bondage, but my girlfriend, she won't do it, you know? And I want to have 4 other girlfriends so I can tie one of them up. And I was just like, I hope that for you in the bottom of my heart. Like, so we get back to this bar, and I'm like, you know, 8 drinks in at this point or something. And so he's like, hey, Shelly-san. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, you remember what we talked about last time? And I was like, yeah, you wanted to tie your girlfriend up. And he's like, not on TV. So I was like, I don't know, I think we talked about car racing. Like, so we had this very awkward conversation, and I got mocked a little for drinking water, but I was just like, look, I've done this before. Like, I don't want to be dead tomorrow, so I'm gonna just like hydrate a little bit. But we kept on going, we had some more food, and we'd gotten this like hot tip from a local who was like sad that we weren't talking to the bar, that like there was a late night bar that we needed to find our way to. So we go back to that one, it's called like Baraki, and it is the most like well-lit late night bar I've ever been in. It was like being in a Denny's at like 4 a.m. It was just like a little bit too much. And we sit down, and they're like, what do you want to drink? And there's this drink in Koenji called Hoppy, which is kind of a nightmare. Like, I guess it's cheaper than drinking beer, so it's like a beer-flavored additive that you pour into a cup and then you add shochu, which is something I've been drinking all night, which is like a Japanese liquor. And so you end up with this like liquor-y, beer-flavored grossness, right? And so I'm like, into the night, like many drinks in, just kind of like sipping at this thing. And the interviewer has kind of like slowed his pace of questions, partially because I don't think he liked the answers I was giving him, and partially because he was just bright red. And after a little bit, right, of like them continue to ask questions, he slowly just kind of slumped onto the table. And I had to check to make sure he wasn't dead after I posed for the camera going, because I was pretty proud of that. And then I guess I just hung out with like the crew, and they were like, yeah, he does that, like, don't worry about it. Like, they'd asked me at the beginning of the night if like they could have my address so they could get me home safely, and I was like, I'm not gonna get drunk, it's not a problem. But apparently I almost killed a man, so after that we like sort of said our goodbyes, and I like walked back to my like apartment, and at that moment I realized, like, you know what, I probably don't need to drink anymore, because I think whatever I was trying to accomplish, like, I have nearly killed a person who was trying to drink the same amount as me, so I can just kind of take it easy now. So the video went up, it was very weird and awkward, there was some confusion about my gender, which, like, get in line, and yeah, and that's how I ended up on Japanese TV, so thank you so much for coming, I hope you've had a great time.